She doesn't love you. She loves what loving you does to you. Let that sentence breathe for a moment. Not because she is cruel, not because she is hollow, but because somewhere deep in her, beneath the softness, the stories, the centuries, she has learned that to survive, she must shape the hearts of men while letting them believe they are leading. You thought you were the one pursuing. You thought your desire made you the hunter. But tell the truth. When did you start losing yourself? Was it when she called you different? Was it when her silence felt like punishment? Was it when your confidence began to orbit her approval like a dying star? You didn't fall in love. You fell into a system, ancient, invisible, and engineered. And Nietzsche, the man the world dismissed as a cynic, saw it all. He saw what most are too terrified to say out loud. That much of what we call love is theater. Spiritualized manipulation dressed in poetry. Not because women are villains, but because history made them invisible. And from that invisibility, they crafted power of a different kind. Not the power of conquest, but of influence. Not the roar of authority, but the precision of emotional gravity. A power so refined, so silent, you mistake it for kindness. And here's the devastating part. You welcomed it. You needed it. Because somewhere inside you, a part still clings to the lie. That love will complete you. That she will redeem you. That her approval will make you whole. But what if all of that, every poetic verse, every tender scene, was a carefully maintained illusion? What if love isn't salvation? What if love is the most elegant battleground of all? You still think she's an angel. Nietzsche thinks you're asleep. Now ask yourself, if everything you believe about love is a lie, what does that make you? Let's dig into the hidden machinery behind the illusion, the ancient psychology that forged it, and the forces that keep you devoted to your own deception. It begins before you ever meet her, before the first glance, the first word, the first heartbeat of infatuation. Something is already working on you, not desire, not biology, something deeper, quieter, a framework etched into the walls of your mind like invisible architecture, a story you've been fed since you were too young to question it. She's the light, they said. She's the warmth, the healer, the one who will see you, choose you, soothe you. All you must do is earn it. But this idea didn't emerge from truth. It was carved from necessity, sculpted over centuries by myth, religion, and repression. By the time Nietzsche entered the scene, this illusion was already fossilized into the soul of Western man. Christianity, with its virginal Madonnas and repentant Eves, didn't just spiritualize woman, it weaponized her moral image. She became not a person, but a symbol, a gatekeeper of purity, a redeemer of male chaos. And what happens when you teach a man that a woman's love is salvation? You make him kneel. Carl Jung called it the Anima, the inner feminine ideal that every man unconsciously projects onto women, not as they are, but as he needs them to be. The more emotionally undeveloped he is, the more powerful projection. She becomes his mirror, his muse, his redeemer, not because she chose to be, but because he cannot see her without the filter. And she learns to play that part, not from malice, but from culture, from safety, from the inheritance of survival. Think of it. For millennia, women had no access to overt power. No swords, no pulpits, no parliaments. So what did they do? They adapted. They turned perception into leverage, influence into control. A well-placed silence could say what a scream never could. A tear could unlock doors that logic couldn't, where the world refused to hear them. They mastered the art of being felt. Aldous Huxley once warned that the greatest form of control is the one you're not aware of. And that's what Nietzsche saw in the relational dynamic between men and women. A psychological game played in the shadows, cloaked in affection, but rooted in asymmetry. She knows how to be needed without appearing to demand. She knows how to guide you without ever touching the wheel. And you call that magic. Nietzsche called it the will to power in its most seductive form. He wasn't accusing. He was observing. Unlike the romantics who idealized love as a transcendent fusion of souls, Nietzsche saw it as a biological and existential negotiation, a battleground beneath the skin, where one seeks to influence and the other, unknowingly, submits under the illusion of agency. Sartre, decades later, would echo this as theory of bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to avoid facing the terrifying freedom of seeing things as they are. You don't want to see the game because the game gives you comfort. You don't want to see the power play because your ego needs to believe you're in control. But here's the tragic truth. The more you believe in a fantasy, the more vulnerable you become to its hidden rules. And the rules are brutal. Desire is currency. Attention is power. Vulnerability is a resource to be managed, not gifted. She doesn't need to control you with force. She only needs to guide your perception, make you feel that her approval is the answer to your ache, that her affection means success. And you, intoxicated by the idea of being chosen, never ask, chosen for what? Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, hell is other people. But Nietzsche might have said, hell is the roles we accept without knowing we're playing them. You think you're being loved. You're being mirrored. You think she desires you for who you are. She may desire the feeling of your desire for her. It's not her fault. It's not yours, either. It's the machinery. This hidden contract, unspoken but binding, is older than you. And the moment you step into it blindly, you begin to lose yourself. Your confidence becomes conditional. Your masculinity becomes performative. Your soul bends subtly to the architecture of her gaze. And this is the wound Nietzsche opens. You have mistaken validation for connection, obedience for intimacy, need for love. Because deep down, you're not just trying to be loved. You're trying to be seen as lovable. And so, you trade your truth for her affection, your selfhood for her approval. And she learns your cracks like a map. Not because she's evil, because she's human. Because history trained her to see what men ignore: emotional weakness, performative strength, insecurity dressed as confidence. She doesn't have to destroy you. She only has to wait until you offer yourself willingly. This is what Nietzsche saw. Not a malicious woman, but a mythologized one. Not a pure angel, but a cunning survivor. And not a romantic man, but a devoted fool worshiping his own projections. And the most devastating part? You still want the lie to be true. Because if it isn't, then love isn't safe. It's strategic. It isn't redemptive. It's transactional. It isn't holy. It's human. And to accept that means facing something terrifying. That you never really wanted her. You wanted the story she made you believe about yourself. Now the question becomes, what has this illusion done to your life? To your choices? To your very identity? The consequences are not abstract. They are silent, and they are everywhere. Let's walk into the fallout. You didn't notice it at first. It began slowly, like a temperature drop you don't register until your breath starts to fog. A shift so quiet it masquerades as love. She didn't ask you to change. You did that on your own. You shaved off the parts of yourself that might scare her, softened the edges that once made you sharp. You began to hesitate before you spoke. You began to look at yourself through her eyes, constantly wondering, is this enough? Or worse, am I enough? This is the cost of projection. You don't see her. You don't see yourself. You see a dynamic, a need chasing its mirror. And the tragedy? It feels exactly like connection. But it isn't. It's performance. It's the death of your authenticity by 1,000 self-inflicted cuts. Because when you love the illusion, you surrender to the system. You become clay, shaped not by intimacy, but by strategy. Your actions no longer arise from your core, but from a subconscious calculation. What will keep her close? What will keep her warm? What will make her stay? This is how a man becomes hollow. Cognitive science calls it confirmation bias. Once you accept the myth that women are inherently nurturing, morally superior, and spiritually healing, you begin to edit reality to fit the narrative. You explain away the manipulations. You forgive the coldness. You tell yourself she's just confused or protecting herself. Anything but the truth, that you are being quietly managed. Your psychology isn't flawed. It's hijacked. Your limbic system, the emotional core of your brain, was designed for survival in tribal groups, wired to seek belonging, connection, attachment. But in the modern relational battlefield, those ancient instincts betray you. You confuse anxiety with passion. You confuse withdrawal with depth. You confuse the thrill of the chase with the warmth of being loved. And she knows it, whether consciously or not. She knows that unpredictability is power. She knows that partial affection, strategically dispensed, will keep you hooked longer than any confession of love. And you, trained by culture, believe that her affection is your worth, become addicted to the very cycle that's eroding your selfhood. This is intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful psychological traps known to behavioral science. It's the same mechanism used in gambling, social media, and addiction. Unpredictable rewards create obsessive behavior. A kiss one night, a cold shoulder the next, a compliment followed by emotional distance. A story about how no man ever understood her, implying, of course, that maybe you will, and you fall deeper, not into love, but into dependence. Because the illusion isn't just beautiful, it's necessary. It becomes the architecture of your emotional reality. You stop asking whether it's true. You only ask whether you're winning. Nietzsche warned us that man's greatest danger lies not in his enemies, but in his desires, especially when those desires are romanticized beyond recognition. When you mistake control for chemistry, silence for mystique, and projection for truth, you are no longer a man in love. You are a man in a trance. But the damage doesn't stop at the personal level. This illusion bleeds into society. It infects how we raise our sons and daughters. Boys are taught to earn love, to achieve their way into validation. Girls are taught that their value lies in how they are seen. Men are encouraged to chase, to sacrifice, to protect. Women to withhold, to refine, to influence. And so, generation after generation, the dynamic persists, a loop of false expectations and unconscious negotiations. We tell men to be protectors, but protect whom? We tell women to be desired. But for what? The collective result is emotional illiteracy. Two people looking at each other and seeing nothing real, just reflections of unmet needs and inherited scripts. Nietzsche wasn't writing a manifesto. He was holding up a mirror, and what he reflected was disturbing. We are all actors in a play written long before we were born. She didn't choose her role any more than you did. But some learn to perform better than others. Some learn to wield the illusion. And some, like you, are still trying to figure out why everything that felt like love eventually turned into a slow collapse. This is not misogyny. This is not blame. This is clarity. Because until you see it, you will keep recreating it. You will move from woman to woman, asking to be completed, healed, seen. And each time, you'll start strong. Each time, you'll lose ground. Each time, you'll wonder what went wrong. Why she changed, why you changed, why the magic faded. And each time, you'll miss the point. It was never real. It was never her. It was what she represented. A cure for your loneliness. A balm for your inadequacy. A mirror that told you you mattered. But mirrors can't love you back. And here's the most devastating consequence of all. The longer you live inside this illusion, the harder it becomes to feel real connection when it finally appears. You become suspicious of sincerity. You reject vulnerability. You mistake peace for boredom. You chase chaos because it feels familiar. You've been conditioned not to love, but to perform for love. And when someone finally sees you, not the projection, not the persona, but you won't know what to do. Because intimacy that isn't earned through effort will feel terrifying. This is how the illusion poisons you from the inside. It makes truth feel like a threat. It makes real love feel foreign. It makes freedom feel like loneliness. But here, in this unraveling, lies the seed of awakening. Because once you've seen the illusion clearly, once you've watched it crumble under the weight of its own contradictions, you are left with a choice. Return to the fantasy, or step into the fire of truth. One path offers comfort. The other offers revolution. And Nietzsche, with his merciless clarity, dares you to choose the latter. Now the question becomes, can you rebel against everything you've been taught to want? Let's begin the rebellion. It doesn't begin with anger. It doesn't begin with blame. It begins with a moment so quiet, so inward, that no one around you even notices it happened. It begins when you stop chasing her. Not physically, existentially. It's when you stop trying to be chosen, stop editing yourself for affection, stop twisting your truth to fit the fantasy. It's when you finally, terrifyingly, allow her not to be what you hoped, but what she is, and what you are too. Because until now, you've been playing roles. The redeemer, the protector, the romantic, the martyr. But Nietzsche's rebellion isn't about reversing power. It's about rejecting the game. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about refusing to lose yourself for the illusion of connection. It's about dismantling the theater, brick by brick, until the only thing left on stage is truth. Uncomfortable, imperfect, unfiltered truth. And here's the paradox. Only when you no longer need her to love you can you finally love her. Because need is not love. Need is dependency disguised in flowers and sonnets. Need is a foundation of all emotional slavery. The rebellion starts when you ask the one question that undoes the entire structure. Who am I when no one is watching? Not when she's watching. Not when you're being admired, desired, validated. But when the performance ends, when it's just you alone, facing the raw silence of your own reflection. That is where freedom begins. Viktor Frankl, a man who found meaning in the middle of a concentration camp, once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, between her silence and your reaction, her withdrawal and your collapse, her approval and your worth, is where your rebellion is forged. Because here's the truth Nietzsche dares you to embrace. You don't need her. You never did. You wanted her to complete a part of yourself you were too afraid to face alone. But that fear is the doorway. Walk through it. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, it will feel like dying. Because something is dying. The man who begged. The man who worshipped. The man who thought love was about being chosen. That man cannot enter the next chapter. So who replaces him? A man who sees clearly. A man who understands that love, without awareness, becomes bondage. That connection, without individuation, becomes consumption. That no matter how beautiful she is, no matter how warm her touch or magnetic her gaze, she is not salvation. She is a sovereign being, with her own shadows, her own strategies, her own power. And so are you. This is not the pickup artist rebellion. It's not manipulation in reverse. It's not armor over the wound. It's deeper than that. It's stepping out of the story entirely and rewriting the script. You stop seeing her as the prize and begin seeing yourself as the source. You stop reacting to her moods like a puppet. You stop proving your worth like a beggar. You stop chasing her attention like oxygen. You look her in the eye and say, without flinch or facade, I do not need you. And because I do not need you, I am free to love you. That is not coldness. That is lucidity. That is not detachment. That is presence. And yes, some women will leave. The ones still addicted to control, to validation, to the dynamic where your neediness makes them feel powerful. Let them go. That was never intimacy. That was mutual emotional addiction. But the right kind of woman, the awakened kind, will hear something different in your clarity. Not threat, not distance, but respect. She will no longer need to manipulate, because you are no longer manipulable. She will no longer need to test your devotion, because you no longer operate from fear. This rebellion spreads, quietly, subversively, across every part of your life. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You stop flinching at rejection. You stop seeking mirrors, and start becoming one. You become the man who does not beg to be understood. You become the man who does not shrink for comfort. You become the man who is dangerous, not because he dominates, but because he cannot be domesticated. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the Overman, the one who transcends not others, but himself, the one who no longer bows to inherited values, inherited myths, inherited needs, the one who forges meaning in a godless world, not from fantasy, but from the furnace of truth. This is what love can become when freed from illusion. Two whole beings, two lucid minds, two untamed spirits walking together, not because they must, but because they choose. And that choice, that radical choice, is the antidote to centuries of emotional slavery. But make no mistake, the old you will claw to stay alive. It will whisper, don't lose her. Don't scare her. Don't be too much. It will seduce you back into the narrative. Resist. Resist with every breath. Resist with the full weight of your unfiltered self. Because the moment you betray your truth for affection, you re-enter the cage. And this rebellion is not one you wage once. It is a daily war against the part of you that still wants to be chosen over being free. But if you keep choosing freedom, if you keep facing the mirror instead of polishing it, you will become something dangerous. Not to her, to the illusion. And in a world built on illusion, clarity is the most rebellious act of all. Now, there's only one place left to go, into the final, unbearable truth that shatters the foundation of not only your love, but your very identity. Are you ready to see it? You've made it this far, past the myths, past the projections, past the machinery of desire and dependency. And now you stand before the final veil, the last deception, the one hidden not in her eyes, but in your own reflection. You believed this entire time that the woman deceived you. But Nietzsche would ask you to consider something more unsettling. What if you deceived yourself first? What if every illusion you clung to about her purity, her mystery, her power to save you, was not her invention, but your own? Because here is the final, most brutal truth. You did not want to love her. You wanted to escape yourself. She was never the goal. She was a distraction. The story you told to avoid facing your own unbearable emptiness. The mirror you held up to avoid looking into the abyss. And you chose her not for who she was, but for how she allowed you to hide from yourself. You see, this isn't just about relationships. It never was. This is about existence. Nietzsche understood what most philosophers only hinted at, that beneath all human striving lies one primal fear, meaninglessness. And when you are terrified of meaninglessness, you will cling to any story that makes you feel significant, even if it's a lie, even if it costs you your soul, even if it means kneeling before a fantasy and calling it love. But love built on self-deception is not love. It is narcissism with a poetic script. You never really wanted her autonomy. You wanted her to orbit you. You wanted her to reflect you. You wanted her to complete the image you had already carved out in your mind. You did not want her freedom. You wanted her to validate yours. And when she didn't, when she resisted the fantasy, when she became human, you called it betrayal. You called it deception. But it was simply the truth bleeding through. The truth you didn't want to see. Because if she isn't an angel, then you are not a savior. If she isn't a muse, then you're not a poet. If she isn't broken, then you are not the one who fixes. And most terrifying of all, if she is not your purpose, then what are you? This is a collapse. The reckoning. The mirror you can no longer avoid. You were never chasing her. You were running from yourself. From the silence you refused to sit with. From the chaos you disguised as romance. From the hollowness you tried to fill with her love. And now that silence has caught up with you. Now, stripped of illusion, the question echoes through the wreckage. Who are you when no one needs you? Who are you when no one desires you? Who are you when you're no longer trying to be loved? This is where Nietzsche leads you, not to hatred, not to bitterness, but to freedom. Because only now in the raw aftermath can you build something real, not on need, not on projection, but on presence, on truth, on the unbearable beauty of being seen exactly as you are, without adornment, without performance. This is love not as possession, but as recognition, not as refuge, but as awakening. It begins when you stop asking, will she choose me? And start asking, have I chosen myself? It begins when you stop needing someone complete you, and instead stand complete in your own truth. It begins when you stop looking for mirrors and start building a life that does not collapse when no one is watching. Because now that the illusions are gone, now that you've stopped hiding in someone else's gaze, you are finally alone with the only person you were ever meant to meet, yourself. And it is from that place, naked, lucid, unfiltered, that love becomes possible. Not a love that consumes, not a love that saves, a love that recognizes two sovereign beings, two lucid hearts, not completing each other, but witnessing each other. No masks, no roles, no rescue fantasies. Only this: I see you, Not because I need you, not because I fear losing you, but because I no longer need to hide from myself. This is the ultimate rebellion, the silent revolution, the invisible fire that Nietzsche lit beneath the skin of every honest man, not to destroy love, but to purify it, not to escape women, but to finally see them, not as angels or threats, but as fellow travelers in the wilderness of being. So what now? You return to the world, not above it, not apart from it, but within it, awake. You may love again. You may fall. You may even ache. But never again will you kneel to the fantasy. Never again will you trade your truth for affection. Never again will you beg to be chosen, because you've already chosen you, and in that choice, you are no longer a slave to her beauty. You are no longer seduced by her silence. You are no longer conquered by the architecture of your own need. You are sovereign. You are lucid. And for the first time, you are free. So the next time you look into her eyes, do not ask, will she stay? Ask, am I still hiding? And if the answer is no, if you are there, truly there, then love will not be a performance. It will be a revolution of truth. And if she can meet you there, not an illusion, but in that raw space where nothing can be faked, then maybe, just maybe, you are no longer at war. You are home,